Hey everyone, so if you missed your small group this week, this video is for you. I suggest that you watch all the way to the end and answer the questions as we go. Alright, so first question I have for my small groups this week. Name one integer and non-integer. So think in your mind, what is an integer and then what would not be an integer. So what we came up with is an integer is any whole number. So 12, 3, 1, 473, all those are positive integers. Negative 2, negative 758, those would be negative integers. 0 is also an integer. We'll go ahead and add that one to the list. Ladies and gentlemen, an integer is any whole number. This just means any number that does not have pieces or parts as a part of it. So non-integers would be pieces of a whole number. So 758 thousandths, a number less than 1, so just part of a whole number. 236, negative 236, and 663 thousandths. Anything that is a whole number with a decimal attached, even the negative numbers, those would be non-integers. 3/4, of course, a fraction, and then a mixed number like negative 62 and 7/8. These would all be non-integers. So again, an integer is just any whole number. Anything else, anything with a decimal or a fraction part to it, is going to be a non-integer. Next thing I wanted you to do was build a number line, and I suggest you do this as we work through the video. So I'd like you to pause the video right now, go ahead and make me a number line. I want you to mark the integers negative 10 through 10. You need to be able to do this for your 8-step test on Friday because it's a great way to compare integers, which you will be needing to do. So go ahead and pause the video, make yourself a number line. I need negative 10 on one side and 10 on the other, and I need you to mark all the integers in between. All right, hopefully you paused the video and did that, and you should have something that looks a little bit like this. So I have a number line. Of course, 0 is going to be our middle point, 10 on this side, and negative 10 down here, and then we have the integers in between. So 1 through 10 on our positive side, and of course negative 1 through negative 10 on the negative side, on our left side of the number line. Next question was mark the following integers on the number line. So as you can see, I've got negative 7 marked over here on the left, 4 marked here on the right, and 7 marked even further to the right. Now this is an important skill to be able to do. I know it seems a little bit easy, but this will actually help us to compare integers as we think of which ones are larger and which ones are greater. So which integer is the largest or has the greatest value? Negative 7, 4, or 7? Now, you should have remembered from your teaching lessons from this week when you took notes, anything to the right on our number line will be greater than anything to the left. So if we're looking for the greatest number in a set, we're going to look at the one, when we place them on a number line, that is the furthest to the right. So in this case, we would have negative 7. Negative 7 would be all the way over here on the left. We would have 4, which would be here on the right, to the right of 0. So that's going to be bigger than negative 7. But then we have 7. 7's all the way over here. It is to the right of 4. So it is going to be our largest integer. So again, the furthest to the right in a set of integers, when you plot them on a number line, will be your largest integer. Which integer is the smallest or has the least value? Well, again, 7 was over here, and 4 was to the left, which is smaller than 7. But check out negative 7. Negative 7 is way over here, almost off of our number line to the left. That is going to be our smallest integer. Even though 7 is larger than 4 when we think of the positive numbers, negative 7 would be considered a smaller or lesser integer because it is a deficit. It's less than 0. It is the furthest to the left, so it will be our smallest integer. Which two integers are opposites? Now here's one that you need to know for a couple of different reasons. First of all, opposite numbers. They are numbers that are the same distance from 0 on the number line, just on opposite sides of the number line. So one will be positive and one will be negative. Now, the main thing to remember here is also absolute value. Absolute value is what we're looking for because absolute value is the distance from 0 on a number line for an integer. So in this case, 7 has an absolute value of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, because we move 7 spaces to get to 0. So on the other side of the number line, we need to move 7 spaces in order to get to our negative value. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So negative 7 would be our opposite. As you can see, the numbers look the same. One just has a negative in front of it. And that will be the same for all opposite integers. One will be positive and one will be negative. But that's because they have the same absolute value. And the absolute value they both have is 7. Now, negative 7 doesn't have an absolute value of negative 7. We still move 7 spaces, even though it was spaces in the opposite direction. We still had a positive movement. So absolute value can't be negative. It's always positive. So our two opposites are 7 and negative 7. We would say they have an absolute value of 7. So what is the absolute value of 4? And then what is the opposite of 4? So again, to find the absolute value, we'll just check how many spaces we are away from 0. If we start at 4, we go 1, 2, 3, 4 spaces. So the absolute value of 4 is 4. But my opposite would be 4 on the other 4 spaces away on the other side of the number line. 1, 2, 3, 4. Again, its opposite would be the same integer with a negative in front of it, negative 4. Pretty easy concept and easy to remember. But remember, this is all because of the absolute value of the integer. All right, evaluate the following and create a number line if you need to. So we have this weird looking expression. If you did not know, the two straight lines on either side of this negative 8, that stands for the absolute value of. If we're writing it out as an expression, we don't have to find the absolute value of. We can just put these lines around the outside of our integer. So we're looking for the absolute value of negative 8. Well, of course, we start at negative 8 and go to 0. We move 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 spaces. And again, the absolute value of any integer is just the positive version of that integer. So the positive version of negative 8 would be 8, and that is indeed its absolute value. Again, the absolute value of 4, we would travel 4 spaces on our number line. And even though it is a positive integer on the inside, this does not mean that it is a negative 4 absolute value. Absolute value is not just switching the positive to a negative or negative to a positive. It's always positive because you're always moving 4 spaces. So the absolute value of 4 would be 4, positive 4. All right, almost done here. Complete the inequality. So I have 6 and negative 9. I need to know if 6 is greater than, less than, or equal to negative 9. Now if we look at our number line, 6 is going to be over here on the right-hand side. Negative 9 is all the way over here on the far left. And remember, everything to the right is larger than everything to the left. So 6 will be greater than negative 9. Even though 9, if it is positive, is a greater integer than 6, because it's negative and to the left of 0, we're going to say that it is a smaller integer. So in this case, 6 would be greater than negative 9. And if we do greater than, remember, I always remembered from 2nd grade that my hungry duck wants to eat the larger integer. So it's going to gobble up that 6 and leave the 9 alone. There we go. All right, moving on to the next one. I have negative 4 and 12. Again, as we're looking at this on a number line, negative 4 would be to the left of 0, 4 spaces. And I know that 12 would be to the right of 0, 12 spaces. 12 is going to be way farther to the right. So again, my hungry duck will be jumping on the larger of these two. We would say negative 4 is less than 12. All right. I'm going to skip these two, and I want to come to this. Complete the inequality. So I have the absolute value of negative 10 is less than, greater than, or equal to 8. Now take a second, think this through. I want you to get your answer in your head before I give you the answer, because you will need to do this on your assessment. All right, So as we look through this is the most commonly missed as we're working in our small groups. Remember, the absolute value of a negative number is its positive value. So the absolute value of negative 10 is positive 10. Positive 10 is less than, greater than, or equal to 8. Of course, 10 is bigger than 8, so we would say that the absolute value of negative 10 is greater than 8. And there you go. The things to remember when we are looking at integers and absolute value, the big things. Remember that an integer is just any whole number. Don't get confused by all the other stuff. It's just any whole number, and a non-integer would be a number that has pieces to it, like a fraction or a decimal or a mixed number. If we're looking for the absolute value of a number, we're just talking about the distance of that number from 0. It's always going to be a positive value because we're moving spaces. Whether it be left or right, there's still positive movement. Also remember, when we're comparing numbers on a number line, anything to the right is going to be a greater value. So to the right, the numbers get larger. Anything to the left, even though these negative numbers look like they're getting bigger, this means a negative deficit or amount that you have to pay back. So these numbers are actually getting smaller. Left is always smaller, right is always larger. Anything to the right will be the larger of things, the thing to the left would be the smallest. So if you have to order numbers or put them in order from least to greatest, put them on a number line, or starting from least to greatest, you would start from the left, the least, and then move one by one to the right. All right, ladies and gents, that's about it for your integer review for this week. Next week we'll be working with integers a little bit more. And then we have our assessment on Friday. So make sure that you make time for your small group lesson next week. Make sure that you have set aside time to be on the call for that. And just to be nice this week, if you have watched all the way to the end of this video, please go ahead and send me an email saying, Mr. Lambert, I watched to the end of the integers video. I would like 10 points, please. And I will give you those 10 points. Make sure that you don't tell this to anybody else because I want you to watch this video before I give you those points. It's important to be on your calls. Next week, there won't be a freebie. So make sure you're on that call next week. Thanks for watching, and we'll talk to you soon.